This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about mystery dirt, Columbo emojis, and the importance of alternating your step-ups. All that and more as we watch Season 6, Episode 10 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Imran. I'm one of your cousin hosts. Joining me is your other cousin host, my sister, Sophia. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going? How you doing?
I'm doing okay, but you know what? It's summertime, and I was just thinking that, we live in Chicago, right? And if you want to take, a little trip on the weekend or something, there's not a lot of great places. What if I want to go, camping or mountain climbing or hiking up a mountain? I can't do that on a weekend from Chicago.
You gotta go to North Dakota. There's Starved Rock somewhere.
It's not a mountain.
I don't know where these mountains are. No, mountains are not
flat.
easily accessible.
It's just flat all around
in the Midwest. Now, if you wanted to go running through some cornfields, I know exactly.
Yeah, you could do that.
Visit Iowa.
Just shuck corn for what's it called when you peel the corn thing?
Oh, shucks. I don't know.
Shuck corn for a weekend. That doesn't sound like a fun getaway.
Anyways, in fictional Chicago, though.
In fictional Chicago.
Mountain climbing is just hours away, as we find out.
In Season 6, Episode 10 of Perfect Strangers, titled Black Widow.
Ooh. The first thing I thought of, because I'm a big nerd and I love comics and the MCU, is, of course, Scarlett Johansson playing the character Black Widow from Marvel Comics.
Mm-hmm.
But then, what else is Black Widow? It's a spider. It's a really venomous spider.
It's a spider.
Yes, but I think what they're referring to is when you call, let's say, a female a Black Widow, and it's
what does that mean?
A woman who kills one or more of her lovers, perhaps.
Maybe. Oh, okay.
Right? That's your Black Widow.
I don't know. I've never.
You never heard of this term, Black
Mm-hmm.
Widow? Yeah, like an assassin. That's why Scarlett Johansson is an assassin. But in
menacing, dangerous woman.
In Pulp Fiction and things, your traditional Black Widow is a woman who kills her lover.
Oh, I did not know.
In case you didn't know. But that's not what happens in this episode, or does it?
Or does it?
If you look in the TV guide, you would have read a story about a murderer makes Larry suspicious of Marianne. Who's planning a camping trip with Balky.
To the mountains.
Yes, camping and mountain climbing in the Midwest yeah.
We have a fun cast. We have Bronson Pinchot and Marklyn Baker as Balky and Larry, Melanie Wilson and Rebecca Arthur as Jennifer Lyons and Marianne. We're about to find out her last name.
Don't spoil it yet. Oh my God.
And
Big
then
reveal.
we have brief scenes with Gorpley, played by Sam Anderson, and someone we haven't seen for quite a while, Lydia Markham, played by Belita Moreno.
Yeah, she's always great to see. She gets
still around.
4 lines. But
yes.
does them very well. Episode first aired November 30th, 1990. And, of course, Perfect Strangers streaming for free on Freevee. That is hard to say. Perfect Strangers streaming.
Say that 10 times.
Streaming Strangers. Amazon
Streaming Strangers,
Freevee.
Freevee.
You can watch along and binge along.
Streaming Strangers.
Yeah.
Streaming. Free stream.
Streaming Strangers.
Streaming Strangers. Okay, let's get into this episode. We begin in the Chicago Chronicle. The boys are at work in the basement. Larry's at his desk and describe what he's looking through.
One of these large leather-bound books, and I'm talking oversized, what is this, 12 by 18 newspaper front page size. A giant oversized book that has every page of the Chronicle printed in it.
So, boys and girls,
what is
once
this
upon
book?
a time, even within my lifetime, the archives at a newspaper, and I worked at a couple of newspapers as a student, the archives at the newspapers were just physical copies of every episode bound together by month and year or whatever.
You had to check them out of the reference section. They were very...
you'd have to know specifically which date which
They were
month
very
you
valuable.
needed, what issue. I was about to say what episode.
Issue
the story was
What
in,
edition.
and it was hard to you couldn't look things up by searching or by dates.
These had to be big, heavy books.
Yeah.
This is when they used to print the internet on paper.
Yes.
And bound it together. It's kind of cool to see something like that.
That's an encyclopedia. The internet printed out.
Well, also the news, though, now, right?
And bound on.
Newspaper archive. So, he's flipping through this giant book as Balky is putting on his jacket, and it's the end of the workday. He's leaving, and Balky goes, cousin, are you ready to go? I thought we might have dinner at that new Chinese-Italian deli.
Fusion.
He says, I've heard great things about their mushu fettuccine. I like this running gag of Chinese-Italian
We
fusion.
didn't have the word fusion cuisine in 1990, but that's what he's
This place probably exists now, somewhere.
But Larry says he cannot go to dinner. He doesn't have time because he's busy researching a series of articles that they're doing on mass murders. Oh boy, Larry, if only you were doing that today is a whole different
True crime.
story.
It's very popular.
And he said it's really fascinating stuff. Yeah, he would be into true crime podcasts.
He would have a true crime podcast, Larry Appleton would.
He says he's discovered that average people can turn out to be murderers. It could be the man in the bank with a nice smile. It could be the man in the barbershop with the little mustache. And then Balky goes, could be the man on a clock tower with the high-powered rifle.
Not understanding the point of what he's saying.
Right.
But Larry doesn't correct him.
Yep.
He goes, yes, it could. Yes. That's kind of a real dark reference. I believe he's referencing that Texas Tower shooting from the 60s.
Mass shooting back in the 60s. It's always been here.
But then if you think about all the incidents like that have happened after this show aired, it's kind of crazy.
Kind of a creepy foreshadowing as well.
Texas clock tower from the 60s. So I was like, that's a dark reference. That's a dark reference.
Yep.
So anyways, Larry's like, Balky, I got to finish this. Get out of here. And Balky's like, okay, I'll bring you back some fortune cannoli. That's real funny. Come on, fortune cannoli. I want a fortune cannoli.
Delicious.
And then what happens? Larry
I would read
down.
that fortune in an Italian accent.
But would the fortune be all wet because it's in the cream of the cannoli? So you'd have to lick the fortune clean
pull
and
it out
then
of your
read
mouth.
it.
Yeah.
Fortune cannoli with
if you don't swallow it.
Fortune cookie outside, cannoli inside. Oh my God, this has got to exist.
Or use fortune cookie as the shell.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so Larry sits down to work. What does he notice?
He opens up one of these big archive books and he sees his eye catches an interesting, compelling news story. And he goes in for a closer look and he reads out loud the headline, which is Mabel Alice Stallings actually it's a caption of a photo he's reading. Mabel Alice Stallings as she's escorted into court under heavy security to stand trial for murder. And then he picks up a magnifying glass.
Okay, a magnifying glass is how you would do enhance before computers.
It's the icon for Zoom on your
It is the icon for Zoom on various apps. That's
how you would.
It's a real thing.
It's the real zoom in.
It's a magnifying glass. Enhance. And he enhances.
And he looks in closer and we see a close-up of this zoomed-in photo. And the photo of Mabel Alice Stallings looks remarkably like Marianne. And then he says, oh my Lord, it's Marianne.
It's definitely a picture of Marianne with some
black and white photograph.
With some police officers behind her, right?
Walking all around her, yeah.
What is
escorting her?
What is going on? That's crazy.
What? Marianne is a murderer?
So we transition to later that night and we hear Larry talking to Jennifer. He's apparently told her everything because you hear Jennifer go, Larry, it has to be a mistake. And he's got the book there.
Yeah.
And he just turns to her and goes, Jennifer, face the facts. The woman you share an apartment with is a homicidal psychopath.
Yeah. And she goes, okay, they didn't have true crime podcast then, but they did have another thing. Jennifer's, Larry, you've got to stop watching America's Most Wanted.
Yes, this was a huge hit Fox TV show. Hosted by John Walsh, first aired in 1988. So we're just 2 years in. It got huge. This show ran for 27 seasons.
A long time, yeah.
Well, and of course, it featured reenactments of criminals and fugitives.
Who are still out there.
On-camera interviews, criminals that have escaped. And the scariest part, I used to watch this show, it would scare everything out of me because John Walsh would be like, and this deadly violent criminal could be in your backyard right now. Call this number. I'm like, no, turn it off. Shut the lights off.
And they have like a phone number for you to call.
It was brought back in...
scary.
Oh, no. They actually, in 2008, the website of the show announced they had captured their 1,000
people
person.
from the show.
John Wolf's still a lot of good with the show. But it was, there was a number you could call.
Scary.
It was a toll-free hotline.
And it was
they
on
got
just
tips.
like
It was like prime
time when kids were watching.
It was like too real for me. And this is like in the 80s and 90s. It was so real and scary. So
it was the precursor to true crime podcasts and documentaries.
See, but people have always liked true crime. Like, it's not a new genre. It's always been around. It's just been now turned into but like, we've always had this fascination.
And Jennifer, okay, so back to Larry and Jennifer. She says, you have to stop watching America's Most Wanted. And she says, look, Marianne is her best friend. She would know, right, if she was a mass murderer.
Think.
And Larry pushes back. He's like, no, that's not something you talk about even with your best friend. And he says, Jennifer, you can't deny the facts.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
And then they do this fun little run of things where he like smacks his hands
with the back
together,
of his hand.
And he goes, fact.
and Jennifer jumps.
And Jennifer jumps a little. Fact. Marianne's picture is in the archives. And again, he goes, fact. When someone changes their identity, they always keep the same initials. Mabel Alice Stallings, Mary Ann Spencer.
Whoa.
That's her last name. Same initials. M-A-S. Fact.
Okay, wait. Is this a fact?
Is this really a fact? That's what I thought. I was like, what?
First of all,
that's pretty stupid. If you
two things here. If you try to change your identity, you think they changed their initials.
Why would you?
This is a weird factoid.
Yeah, where did they come up with that?
But we officially know Mary Ann's last name, Spencer.
Jennifer Lyons and
Mary Ann Spencer. It's the first time we hear it. It's great to know.
Fact. But I don't think this fact is so random and out of nowhere. The same initials.
It's fake news, Larry.
Yeah.
And then before Larry can continue, the most random and hilarious thing happens, right? Yeah. The door bursts open and in comes a Balky in shorts and suspenders and a short sleeve shirt and a television.
Yeah.
Tied to his back.
With like a string, not even that securely.
Yeah, tied to his back and shoulders, and he just runs up to the coffee table and starts doing step-ups.
Up and down.
A television.
Like weighted step-ups.
Tied to his back.
Now.
Couple things here.
You and I work out quite a bit. Oftentimes we do the same workouts.
Step-ups. Yes.
And together. So what was your thought when you saw him doing step-ups? I feel like you had the same thought I did.
He would step up with the same
leg,
leading foot, and then step down the back.
You gotta alternate. You gotta alternate.
Look, he's doing the work, but you're gonna.
I mean, some people. Okay, so
you gotta do the other side.
You can do it one way or another. If it was me, because I'm so anal about balancing the work,
yeah.
I would alternate with every step, like have a little dance routine when you switch.
It slows you down a little.
But some people do 20 on one side, and
then you got to do the other side.
But we didn't see him switch.
The whole time he's doing step ups during the scene, he is leading with the same right leg, and I'm like, Balky, you got to switch. What are you doing?
Do you see how passionate we just got about balancing out your step ups?
Your other leg's going to atrophy.
Have a huge thigh. Yeah. You got to alternate your start sides.
So he's doing step ups and he's like, hi, Constant. Hi, Jennifer. Just doing step ups. It's hilarious. So
and Larry's they're just watching him like, what is happening? And he says, why do you have a television strapped to your back? And I love this. Balky goes, because the refrigerator almost killed me.
Oh, no, he tried this with the refrigerator.
Tried it with the refrigerator. I bet he could do it. He's like, why do you have any appliances strapped to your back? And we find out that Balky is training. And he says, I'm building up the old ham things. Hamstrings. Although he's only building up one hamstring. One ham thing.
You gotta build up both ham things, What are you doing?
I love it that we had the same thought.
You gotta
build up both ham things.
Maybe after he leaves, he does the other side. We don't know.
Why is he building up his ham things? Because Marianne and Balky are going to Mount Whitefish over the weekend. They don't say if they're driving or flying somewhere far. He said they're going to climb Needle Nose Peak.
Yeah,
are these real places?
I don't think so. I think this is just made up names. I doubt. Not in Illinois. There's no Mount Whitefish or in the neighborhood. I know. It's made up. It's just a generic place that happens to be like a day's drive. I guess not even. We'll find out from Chicago.
Yeah, Where are these mountains?
Yeah. And then Larry just gets frustrated with trying to keep up. He starts doing step ups with Balky to talk to him.
Also with the same
Yes, but he's not doing a full step up. He just has the foot
he just
resting
keeps his front foot
on the table. So he goes up and down, up and down. And he's like, Buggy, Jennifer and I are dealing with something very important. Can you do this somewhere else? And Buggy's like, oh, sure, I can do it over here on the sofa chair. And he's like, no.
Sofa's hard.
Yeah, because it's a soft surface.
I've done step-ups on the coffee table before.
Yeah, and then he's like, I could do it over here in the hallway. He goes, no. He goes, oh, I could do it over here on the counter, but it would be a stretch.
And he starts to put his whole leg
on the counter.
over the counter.
Larry's like, no. And then he's like, use the stairs. And then Balky walks over to this coffee table, which to his credit, this is like 20, 30 inches maybe almost tall.
Higher. It's like the side table.
Yeah, the side table is higher. It's at least 25, 30 inches, and he's doing step-ups on the coffee table. Yeah. And he goes, cousin, the stairs are not really a challenge. And he goes, besides, Mrs. Schlegelmilch doesn't need her TV back until Nightline, which is a hilarious line.
Remember Mrs. Schlegelmilch?
Yes, I love the Mrs. Schlegelmilch
She's still
reference.
In the building. She's still alive.
She's still around.
Oh, good for Mrs. Schlegelmilch.
He took her TV, and then Larry goes, go now, and Belky just goes, okay, and leaves.
No.
Here's another note.
So bossy.
First, Schlegelmilch, great callback reference. She's still around. Second, remember Tess? Remember Alison Porter wins The Voice?
Be Cousin Oliver.
Remember they were going to add her to this show, and then they decided not to? She was actually supposed to be in this episode. Originally, Balky walks in with Tess tied to his back, doing step-ups.
That's weird.
Right? That would have been weird. Like, what is happening? Where did Tess come from? Like, the Tess thing would never work. So, the television is way more random and funny than Tess, which they were trying to... Alison Porter, again, had a great career. There was nothing wrong. She didn't need to be on the show.
So, Larry kind of bosses him around and orders him to leave. Balky leaves. And then once he's gone, he sits back down with Jennifer on the couch. He goes, where was I? And then Jennifer goes, fact.
We remember this fact. It's kind of obnoxious and annoying, like in a lovable way when he does this.
Yeah.
And he continues going, fact.
And then the whole time Balky was there, it didn't occur to him.
Yeah.
But now it hits him. Marianne is going to spend the weekend alone with Balky. He goes, oh, no, I can't let him go.
He was kind of slow to come to this realization when he heard
the whole time they were there. Even Balky mentioned Marianne's name.
And Jennifer is like, Larry, you're crazy. Would you listen to yourself? I've known her all my life. We grew up together. We went to school together. We're inseparable.
And Larry's like, really? You've never been apart?
And then she says, well, there was, we did lose touch for a couple of years. She suddenly remembers.
And by chance, were those couple of years between 84 and 85.
And then Jennifer's like, well, yes, they were. Uh-oh.
And Larry goes, fact. And he picks up the newspaper, like the archive book, the giant leather-bound thing. He says, all the murders were committed in 1984 and 1985.
Oh, boy.
Now, wait a minute. If they're supposed to be 30 in 1990, so presumably the girls are the same age. So Marianne was like 24 and 25 killing people. I guess.
Apparently. Or is it just a coincidence, which Jennifer says? But then Larry asks her, did Marianne ever tell you what she was doing in those years? And Jennifer's like, no, she doesn't like to talk about that time in her life. She goes, she calls it her, and then it hits her. Dark years. She calls it her dark years. And Larry's like, well, that has a nicer ring to it than my murdering psychotic years.
Yep.
So now Jennifer is questioning her own lifelong friend.
But she's still kind of incredulous. She's like, wait a minute. If Marianne is Mabel Alice Stallings, then why isn't she in jail? Like it says here in the picture that she was on trial for murder.
Good question.
Good question. And Larry says he did do some research. He found out she was acquitted and they never found any of the bodies. She was tried for murder 4 times. And they never found any of the bodies.
Wait, so in the 2 years, she was tried for murder 4 times in 2 years, and nobody caught it?
She was a busy 24-year-old.
Larry doesn't realize none of this makes sense. And Jennifer's like, look, Larry, I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to wait for Marianne. Larry tries to stop her, and she goes, no, I'm going. And she goes, when Marianne gets home, I'm going to bring her downstairs. We're going to sort this all out. And Larry reluctantly lets her go. He goes, okay. And before Jennifer leaves, he goes, whatever you do, don't call her Mabel, because he's freaking out now.
Yeah. So we cut to later in that evening, and Balky's now packing.
This is kind of a funny scene.
Camping pack. And
what is he packing
right as
in his
we
bag?
cut to this scene, He's putting like a small television,
Yes.
but big but small.
But those were travel televisions back in 1990.
Yeah, they were still big.
Giant CRT tube into his camping bag.
Yeah, it's not like a little screen. It was like a big, bulky thing into his thing. But it's different from the Schlegel-Milch's television that he has strapped on his
It's a
back.
different TV. It's smaller. And where did their television go, by the way? Is it in somebody's room?
Yeah, remember they used to have a television? Now
in
they
like
don't
the first
watch television
season.
anymore.
Also, I love this. Dimitri, the sheep, is sitting right there on the coffee table. He's going to go camping with him. He's taking
back
him camping.
from his vacation.
No picture. Actual Dimitri sheep. Right there.
They got a new intern.
You can't miss it. Yeah.
And then, so Balky's like packing and all his stuff is there and Dimitri's there. And then he gets excited and he wants to show Larry something.
Well, Larry comes out holding the giant book very closely
and
to his heart.
Says, he's like clutching the closed leather-bound thing to his chest. And Balky's excited. He said, look what I got for Marianne. I bought her this because she was complaining that she didn't have a good camping hatchet. And then he has a thing with a cover on it. He pulls it out of the cover and it's this shiny, like little axe thing.
It's a nice axe. Oh yeah, it looks sharp.
It looks sharp and shiny. And Larry's like, no hatchet. And Balky's like, oh, be careful. It's very sharp. Marianne said she needed a hatchet that was razor sharp.
And Larry at this point is just freaking out. He goes, so you went and got it for her? What is the matter with you?
Yeah.
Are you out of your mind? Don't you see what's going on here?
Panicky, frantic Larry.
And it's hilarious that there's a long pause because Balky's clearly confused.
And then he finally says, all I see is a man with tremendous mood swings.
It's not explained anything to Balky.
Like, what? Why are you being crazy?
And then a little great comedy bit as Balky waves this hatchet around
in the air.
as he goes, first you're up, then you're down, then you're over here, then you're over there. What is
and
this
then he's like putting it
roller coaster?
Waving it in a circle, and Larry's like leaning back away from it.
He's like, is something bothering you? And Larry finally grabs the hatchet and puts it down. And they sits him down, and Larry's like, yes, something is bothering me. And he sits Balky down, and he goes, Balky, suppose someone who is close to you, someone you thought you knew really well, did a hideous, horrible thing. This is how he's trying to tell Balky. Balky sits for a minute and goes, you drank milk out of the carton again, didn't you?
That's the horrible, hideous thing.
That's the horrible, hideous thing.
Then there's a knock at the door, and we enter Marianne. I'm sure there was some reason for this that was cut out, some other scenes or lines, but she's in like a cute little sweatsuit, but it's like got dirt all over it.
It's very strange. I didn't actually notice this until like the second time I watched it. She doesn't have dirt like on her face or hair, but her clothes are covered. And I couldn't tell. I was like, is that meant to be like the pattern? At first I thought it was the pattern, yes.
But it looked like just dirt, like she had been
and there's some on her back, like on her butt, and it's very strange.
But not in her hair or face. So I was just like, are they going to tell us why she's dirty? And maybe they did and cut it out, but we don't.
Never referenced. Apparently, there was a line that was cut out where she explains she's been cleaning out her closet and
but of dirt.
How dirty was that closet? And that's why she looks like that. But yes, either. I was like, why is she dirty? What is happening? Anyway, she goes, hi, Balky. She walks over and she goes, oh, Balky, is this my camping hatchet?
She got so excited for her camping hatchet. She goes, it's perfect. And Larry's still like clutching this book in front of him.
Yeah, he's standing aside from her, staring at her
thing. And he's just like looking all scared. And he asks, where's Jennifer? And Marianne just goes, oh, she's gone.
Oh, she's gone. It's so funny. And
Larry's
his
like,
eyes,
gone?
It's like, what do you mean gone? His eyes pop out.
And all she means is that Jennifer was called to fill in on a flight to Hong Kong.
I love that. And she's like, oh, she's gone. You're like, what?
A long flight.
Larry just goes, I believe you. I have no reason you have no reason to lie to me. Just like saying weird things. And Marianne's like, got around it. And she just leaves. And when Larry, there's a cute little moment where Bucky closes the door and he's just like leans against the door and he's just like all happy thinking about her, right? And then Larry runs over and just goes,
jumped to all the conclusions.
Still has clutching the book. He runs over to Bucky and goes, Bucky, Marianne killed Jennifer. And he runs over.
Killed Jennifer.
The door.
Bucky's like, what?
What? So funny.
Larry's like, Marianne is a mass murderer.
Bucky goes, Cousin, it's one thing to call her a lousy bowler, but now you've gone too far.
And Larry's off to call the police. He goes to the phone and Balky stops him. He's like,
well, no, this is really funny because Balky is to the left of him and Larry's on the right. And he's like, I'm going to call the police. And they both scuttle over simultaneously, Balky remaining in front of him to block him from the phone.
He like runs ahead of him, but like in sync with him.
Yeah.
And he says, you're out of your mind. And he says, but Marianne didn't kill Jennifer. Jennifer's on her way to Hong Kong.
Oh.
And the police are too busy for you to send on some wild moose chase.
Moose chase.
He means wild goose chase.
But it could be moose, too.
Wild moose.
Yeah, I mean, moose are easier to find, I suppose.
Yeah.
Larger. But why not? Wild moose chase, that works. So then Larry runs around. Balky's like covering the phone. Larry runs around the other side of the counter. Balky pulls the phone away. And then Larry pulls the cord and slowly reels him back in. He's like, Balky, I have proof that Marianne is the murderer. He opens the book and shows Balky that photo.
With a caption. And Balky says, that's a very nice picture of Marianne. Larry says, read the caption. And Balky reads out loud, Mabel Alice Stallings as she is escorted into court under heavy security to stand. Trial for murder.
He didn't finish reading. And then so Larry has this face like, see, I told you. Balky's mouth drops open. Larry thinks Balky's understanding now, and Balky says, Mabel Alice Stallings is a dead ringer for Marianne. And you see Larry's face go.
What are the chances of that? 1 in a dozen?
1 in a dozen. Low chances. High chances.
High chances. And Larry's like, no, if you go, he's like, Balky, if you go on this trip with Marianne, she'll kill you just like she killed Jennifer. He's not even grieving Jennifer right now. His fiance, who he thinks is dead.
He thinks Jennifer is gone. And he goes, I never even had a chance.
He grieves a little bit.
He grieves her right here, right? He starts crying. He goes, I never even had a chance to say goodbye. And then the phone rings. And he goes, hello, Jennifer. It's Jennifer.
And Balky goes, well, feed me carbos and call me fatty. Carbos. Remember when we called carbs carbos?
I don't ever remember calling carbs carbos.
It was in the 90s.
Really?
In the 80s.
Let me get some carbos. That was the thing. But Larry's still a little bit crazy. And he goes, Jennifer, listen to me. Cough once if Marianne is making you say this.
Gosh.
Like being all crazy.
And then there's a pause, and then we hear him go in a lower voice. Yes, all right. I'll stop acting like this. He's like, no, I understand you. You don't want to marry a crazy man. He's like, I'll talk to you back. And he hangs up.
Yeah.
And Balky's just looking at him like, uh-huh.
And Larry is not making eye contact. He's looking off in the distance. And Balky like leans in, staring right at him.
Jennifer. Oh, yeah. That's a funny stare.
With this I told you so look. Yeah. He goes, that was Jennifer. And Larry goes, yeah.
And he says she was calling from the airport. Balky's like, the airport. On her way to? And Larry goes, Hong Kong.
Hong Kong.
So that would indicate that Marianne didn't kill her. And Larry's like, yep. And he goes, and he apologizes.
No. But Larry just nods his head, and Balky sticks his ear forward, and he goes, I'm sorry. I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
And then you hear Larry go, yes. He wants to hear yes.
So he says, excuse me, I have to go pack for this camping trip, but now that you've solved the Jennifer murder, maybe you can figure out who killed Laura Palmer.
And
what is this reference?
Well, and then that's the end of Act 2. We fade to black.
Who killed Laura Palmer?
This is a great reference to another weird show. Of course, it is talking about.
I might want to start rewatching this after Lost.
I'm going to get to that. Twin Peaks, ABC show, the original weird show. I've watched this when it came out.
I watched it when it came out, but we were so young. Some of it was like really not appropriate.
What's crazy is how big it got so quickly. This is late 1990. The show started in April 1990, created by David Lynch. Mm-hmm. And even though it's so influential, people still talk about it. It had only 2 seasons.
Only 2.
There was a spin-off movie, and they did have a 3rd season Showtime made in 2017.
Oh, they did. I didn't know that.
I didn't watch that 3rd season.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. After your Lost binge, you need to watch. This is the original Lost.
I think I might.
This is the original show that everybody was like.
It's only 2 seasons. It won't take me as long as Lost.
I mean, in the early 90s, this is the show that everybody's like, I don't understand what's going on.
It was even spoofed on The Simpsons.
Yes, everybody. Like, it's so influential. And you didn't know what was happening, but you were in on the mystery.
But it was kind of scary, too.
It was a little bit scary. It's David Lynch. If you've seen any of his movies, he is very strange, but it's a great show. There's a kid I work with who's like in his 20s. He loves David Lynch and Twin Peaks, and he's watched. I was like, oh my God. I was like, this wasn't even on when you were born, dude.
Maybe our next podcast after this will be
Twin Peaks has a lot of like diehard fans and a whole cult community.
I'm sure there's podcasts.
Still, yeah, oh yeah. All right, before we get to season 2, listener.
Oh, and wait, so the connection is Who Killed Laura Palmer, the story in Twin Peaks, that's like the whole premise.
That's the whole premise is
they're trying, like this police detective trying to find out.
Al McLaughlin with, and a tape recorder and a lady with a log, and the whole thing is Who Killed Laura Palmer, and it's really good. It's trippy. I still don't know if I completely understand what I watched, but it's a great, it's a quick binge.
Yeah.
You want to join this conversation, listener, join our Facebook group. There's a link in the episode description. It's where I post a thread for all the episodes before we record them, so you can binge along on Freebie and leave your comments, and we'll share them on the show, and you get to meet other listeners of this podcast and fans of Perfect Strangers. A lot of fun geek stuff in there.
A lot of fun stuff. Okay, moving on to Act 2. We're back at the Chronicle. Larry's talking to Lydia in the basement, and he's it sounds like he's learned his lesson. He's saying, I'm so embarrassed. I made a complete fool out of myself. Like, I can't believe I was running around saying that someone as sweet as Marianne killed 4 men and Jennifer. And he's like, oh, I'm so silly. He's like, I'm sure there's a logical explanation for this picture in this newspaper. And Lydia's just like, yeah, there is. Marianne is a mass murderer.
See, Lydia doesn't buy it. Lydia's
and
into.
Now Larry, all he needs is one person to support him. Yeah. And he's like, what? And Lydia's like, look at the facts. The picture, the dark years, the hatchet.
Back.
But Larry's like, no, but Jennifer is alive and in Hong Kong. And Lydia just gives him this like duh response, like, yeah, she's in Hong Kong so she won't be a witness to the murder. You don't have to be Columbo to figure out what's going on around.
It's actually a really good reason for why Jennifer is in Hong Kong, and just enough to make him crazy, because now like she's feeding into his thing. Columbo, you know Columbo. That's another reference to
Peter Falk.
Yeah, another ABC series.
It's from the 70s, and Peter Falk was like a detective.
Our father loved this show. That's why I remember Columbo.
A lot
we used
of
to
people,
watch this.
even in our generation, watched it. And there's people I work with who reference it all the time. We even have a Columbo emoji on Slack, because every time anyone writes, wait, just one more thing, they put the Columbo emoji.
Wow, it still lives. I mean, he's the definitive like TV detective when you want to reference a TV detective.
And he always said this thing, wait, just one more thing. He was like the pesky, annoying one that people didn't want. And so he would ask a bunch of questions, and the villains would be all like annoyed, and then he would walk away and then come back and be like, just one more thing.
Classic procedural television is what it was.
And it was first from the 70s, and then they made a new series of it, like a new version from 89 to 2003 on ABC.
That's right.
Was that one also with Peter Falk?
I think they brought him back, but he would have been like really old.
Yeah. Anyway, we definitely have some Columbo culture at my work.
Wow. Columbo lives. I like it.
Just one more thing. But I don't know if everyone at the company gets those references.
Knows why that was
definitely, or
Columbo?
Like who's in that emoji, but definitely a lot of the older people do.
I wonder if it's streaming anywhere.
Now Larry's freaking out again. He's like, wait, I have to stop Balky from going on that trip with Marianne. And Lydia's like, yeah, if he goes, he's a dead man.
Oh, boy.
And then just then, Mr. Gorpley comes out of the office. It's still the work day on Friday, presumably. And Larry goes, Mr. Gorpley, where's Balky? And Mr. Gorpley said that since Balky was talking about going away for the weekend, he let him leave early to get an early start. He gave him the rest of the day off. And then, just as I was thinking, that's really nice of Mr. Gorpley, he, in fact, says, wait a minute, I was nice and I got nothing out of it.
I love that he's self-aware.
He's like, what? Why am I being nice with nothing in return? The same time the audience is thinking that, so that's nice. And Larry's like, oh no, I gotta go save him. I have to get to that mountain. I hope it's not too late. And he runs out through the garage.
Then we transition to establishing shots of mountains and the sides of a cliff
So
somewhere.
it's Friday afternoon, and somehow Balky, Marianne, and Larry now have all made it to a mountain area.
This I don't know where.
Chicago.
There's a very tall mountain, and we cut to this amazing mountain set.
Now, they could have flown somewhere for the weekend, but
Yeah,
how does
yeah.
Larry just find them so easily?
We'll get to that. He hasn't found them yet.
All right.
You see a shot of Marianne
All right.
climbing over this cliff, and she's got rope. And she goes, "How you doing, Balky?"
And Balky's like in the mountain, like on the side of the mountain, and it's very steep, like on a little ledge.
Yeah,
like
in
a
jeans
goat, like
and
a mountain
shirt.
goat.
Yeah, and he's drinking some water out of a canteen, and suddenly he drops it. We see a shot,
water bottle.
this grainy film shot of this water bottle falling from his point of view.
And the footage from below is like so weird.
It's like grainy. Yeah. And he goes, "Well, I'm stuck. My feet hurt. And I just dropped my water bottle. This is fun." So, you know how you see climbing documentaries and people have all these harnesses and carabiners and clips and rope? I guess this was before all that. Because he's just in his regular
He's just
clothes.
like clutching
What
the side
kind of trail
this
is this? How'd they even get there?
There's no trail. He's just on the side of a
kind
rock on a little
They
ledge.
just let people like how do they even get up this high? What is happening?
Where are they even?
I don't know where they are. He doesn't seem sweaty. Have they climbed up this far just without any
Did they
rope?
come from the top or from the
come
bottom?
down? I don't know what's happening.
How did he get to
He
the
is
side?
just stuck.
Why is he like dangerously on the side
He
of
is
this?
hanging onto the side of the mountain like
And
Tom
Marianne's
Cruise in
just
Mission
at the
Impossible.
top already. So I imagine maybe they were climbing like serious rock climbing up from the bottom up,
yeah, but
and
you
Marianne
need, like,
was just too
gear.
good at it and went all the way up, and he like froze somehow.
They free climbing like free solo?
climbing,
That's
yeah.
so dangerous. No,
Yeah.
you just don't start to do that.
So many questions.
There's
about this
no
episode,
equipment.
about this scene.
How do they get up here? And then
Where are there even mountains by Chicago?
so she says, "Don't worry." Marianne says, "I'll throw you a rope down." And then suddenly we see Larry
At the top.
just running
We're now
the
at the
top.
top. A
His
different
shirt
set.
is all disheveled. He's breathing heavily. He goes, "Hold it right there, Mabel." How did he find them?
Yeah, how did he find
On the
them?
top of some
On
random
mountain in the
Now,
Midwest.
He did say Needle Nose Peak, so
Yeah.
But still, this is a bit. I mean, how you
Mount
gonna find him right away?
Whitefish, Mount White something.
How much time from when he left? It's still daylight, so it must not have taken long for him to come from Chicago Chronicle. to the
Apparently
top
it's
of
in
this
like
mountain.
running distance because he's all disheveled.
Did he drive? How did he get
Why
here?
is he disheveled?
And Marianne's like, "Larry, what are you doing here? And who's Mabel?"
And Larry's like, "Oh, please. I know all about you. You may be good, but not good enough to outsmart Larry Appleton." He's like, "Now, where's Balky?" And she gestures over the side of the cliff or whatever. And she says, "Balky's stuck. I was just about to throw this rope down to help him."
Larry's like, "Nice try, Mabel." And he grabs the rope and
This is
Marianne
funny. A little
and
bit of physical
pulls her down. And then he takes the coiled rope and starts to run around her to tie her up. Except Marianne just kind of
She's
spins
holding
with
the
him.
other
She's
end,
holding
and
the end,
she
and she just rotates with
She
him.
rotates with him, so it's not
Nothing is getting
winding.
tied up.
It's
And
not-
she's like, "Larry, what are you doing?" And they're just spinning. And then he's like, he stops and he stops her. He's like, "Just stand there
Stops
for a
her
second."
from
Yes.
turning. Yeah.
He goes, "Hold on, just stand there." And then he continues to run around
It's so
with the rope, going, "I'm making sure you don't get away, and then I'm going to save Balky."
She just lets him
And she's just
tie
standing
her
there.
up, like just watching this crazy man run
And then he
around her.
he just runs the rope around her several times and then tucks the whole thing in the back. I don't even think he tied a
Yeah.
knot. And then he gently picks her up and sets her down in a sitting position on the ground.
And then he runs toward the edge of the cliff to go find Balky, but then he comes back and he says, "I think I speak for Jennifer when I say you are out of the wedding." Whoa.
Marianne's face is just like, "What? What did I do?" She's so like, "What's
She's
happening?"
so confused. Yeah.
And then this is great. Larry runs up there, and there's two sets of rope sitting there on the
Coiled up, yeah.
coiled top of the cliff. And he goes, he bends over. He goes, "Balky, hold on!" And then he just picks up one of the coils of rope and just
The whole coil.
throws the whole coil over the cliff, and it goes by Balky.
Yeah.
He didn't unravel it or tie it off or anything. He just throws.
And Marianne,
So
you
silly.
see Marianne
Yeah.
roll her eyes.
So funny.
What?
I love that. He's just like, "Huh." And then he's like, "Oh," and then he goes, "Tie first, then throw." Tie first, then throw.
He takes the other rope.
What an idiot.
And we see this like small little pathetic twiggy tree coming out of the mountain. And he starts to tie the end of the rope to this like very weak looking tree. And Marianne from tied up on the ground from her, she goes, that's not a good idea, Larry. And Larry goes, oh, and I suppose murdering my best friend is a good idea? And this is so perfect. She's so confused. She's like, no, that's not a good idea either. Why? Like to her, she's like, what is he talking about?
Bad ideas. Anyways, he ties it to this little spindly tree. This is not a good idea. And he lowers himself down. So we cut to now.
How did he get there? We don't even see him. Yeah.
No, the cliff shot is just like all cliff filling the frame. And we see Larry coming down while Balky has his eyes closed singing Ain't No Mountain High Enough to himself to kind of make him feel at ease. And then Larry comes down and his eyes are closed. And Balky like finally opens his eyes and goes, oh, he didn't see about everything. He goes, Cousin, glad you could drop in, he says. And then he laughs at his own joke. He goes, where do I come up with them?
Almost falls
and
forward.
Leads forward.
Off the
and he's like,
side
Larry pulls him back.
And he says, Balky, thank God you're safe. And Balky's like, yeah, but you seem upset. And he goes, you seem like a person who's at the end of his rope. And then he does another laugh at his own joke. Where do I come up with him? And again, he almost falls off the cliff and Larry catches him, pushes him back. And Larry's getting annoyed. He says, there's no time for jokes. He's like, I'm here to save you. Now here, grab this rope. And Balky, before he takes the rope, he's like, okay, I just have one question. Is this rope secure? Because Marianne always said, apparently Marianne's some great like mountain climber.
Listen, their families used to summer in Beirut. She knows a lot of things.
Because Marianne always said that one of the first rules of rope climbing is to make sure that your lifeline is anchored safely.
And Larry's just like rolling his eyes at this statement. He's like, Balky, when Larry Appleton ties a knot, it stays tied. And he yanks the rope one time, yanks it 2 times, yanks it a 3rd time, when suddenly the tree comes loose.
The entire tree, we see it's like roots and everything.
And the rope and the tree just fall away, and Larry freaks out and starts screaming and grabs onto Balky.
Takes him down to, and Balky catches him by his like face.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got you. And he pulls him,
up
back upright by his face and head. Larry's like, we're trapped. There's no way out.
So
we're stuck on the side of this
mountain now.
Like on a little ledge.
Yeah.
And Balky says, we're not trapped because Marianne is still on the top of the mountain. We'll just ask her to throw a rope down. And he yells up, Marianne. And Larry's like, oh, that's going to be tough for her. And he goes, I tied her up.
Balky goes, why? I tied her up. And then the look of Balky.
I tied her up.
Why?
I tied her up because she's trying to kill you. And then, this is funny, Balky says, cousin, I told you once, I told you twice, I told you 2 times.
What do you usually say?
3 times.
Or 1,000 times, I thought. If I told you once, I told you twice, I told you 1,000 times. But then he just does a literal. I told you twice. I told you 2 times.
Marianne is not trying to kill me. And they start like arguing and grappling with each other. And then now they almost both fall off the edge, but they catch each other and come back. And they get all panicky. And they're like, ah! And then Balky's like, cousin. Then he starts going, eye contact, eye contact. Until Larry like finally looks at his
with
eyes.
This terrified look. And then Balky's like, good.
2 goods, which is such a weird thing.
Another beginning of another running bit.
And then this is a funny line too. He says, cousin, whatever you do, don't even think about falling down, because if you fall, you're going to have plenty of time to think about it on the way down.
Time management. Balky's helping him save his time and his brain power. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it now. Yes, be efficient. And then Balky goes, okay, now I'm just going to go over there.
He wants to go to the other side of Larry.
On the other side of Larry, on the higher, he goes, I'm going to go over there. Okay, let me through. Okay, and it's kind of funny because Larry at first is just like, okay. He's like, okay, I'm going to go over there. He goes, okay. He doesn't actually register what Balky is saying. And then Larry goes, wait, what? What? You can do what? And so then now this is some hilarious physical comedy as Balky slides behind Larry as Larry grabs a rock and gives Balky room, and he puts his leg up and he's like, okay, go ahead. Okay. And they go, okay. And he kind of muscles his way and he gets around Larry, and now he's on the other side. At one point, he puts his hand on Larry's face to help lift him up. And he continues climbing, and he reaches this point where there's like a tree there.
Yeah.
But on the way, they're like, oh, eye contact. Okay. So then Balky thinks he's reached a nice spot where there's a branch that he grabs, and the branch just comes out and falls, and they both start screaming, and then they both go, eye contact.
Both in unison are saying, eye contact, eye contact, eye contact, eye contact. Good. Too good.
So then Balky does not like where he is, and he goes, cousin, I'm gonna come down. I gotta come back down. So he comes down.
Now he wants to go back to where he was.
Now he's panicked. He's like, I want to go over there.
Larry again.
No, I want to go over there. I don't feel safe here. Like he's gonna throw a little tantrum.
I don't feel safe here.
So then he has to wiggle himself again back behind Larry.
Larry has to come off the side of the mountain a little.
He's like, okay,
to let him pass.
Okay, careful. Eye contact.
And then Balky makes it to the other side, and Larry like grips the side of the rock and grabs Balky's shirt at the chest, and Balky starts going, And Larry's like, why are you screaming? And he goes, chest hair, because he's gripping his shirt so hard.
It's so funny. And then Larry lets go and like rubs his chest.
Yeah.
He's like, sorry.
And then we see a rope drop from the top.
To the right of Balky, a rope just falls.
Yeah, right where they are. What?
It's Marianne. And
she's free.
Yes. And she's standing up there going, Balky, Larry, I've tied the rope to a big tree. It's safe to climb up. So, yay, they're safe.
And Balky's excited. He's about to climb up the rope. And Larry stops him, says, it's a trap. How did she get loose? And Balky calls up to her, Marianne, how you did get loose?
And Marianne's like, oh, Larry couldn't tie a knot if his life depended on it.
He was so like, Larry Appleton ties a knot,
doesn't.
Blah, blah.
He does not know how to tie a knot. And Balky's like, would you like to go first? And Larry goes, no, it's a trap. He goes, if we grab onto that rope and try to climb up, she'll let go and we'll hit the ground so hard they'll take us home in a pizza box.
Oh, boy.
But Balky trusts Marianne. Of course, he should.
And he's going to climb up the rope. And he believes that Marianne wouldn't do anything to harm either one of them. So he's going to climb up the rope. And he says, if you want to stay here, then you sue yourself.
Sue yourself.
Instead of suit yourself. And
he climbs up the rope.
Climbing up. He says, Marianne, I'm coming. And then we see his legs sort of like we see his body climb out of frame. And we hear him go, do we have any of those tuna sandwiches left? And Larry just stays there on the rock. He's like, I'll be fine. I'll take my chances climbing down. And then we see him. He's like facing the rock now, his back to us. And we see him kind of like lower his right foot, looking for a foothold.
Yes.
But it's just smooth rock. There's no foothold.
He's just flexing his ankle around.
Yeah, he's like looking for something. And then finally he pulls himself back onto the ledge.
And then he just kind of stands there for a second.
And then he looks up and he goes, Balky, Balky. And we cut out of that scene.
And we never actually see Larry climb back up because we cut back at the apartment where we hear Jennifer's voice first and we see all four of them are there. And Jennifer's saying, I am sure Marianne can solve this mystery. The four of them are sitting there on the couch. Larry's on the arm and Marianne has like a photo album.
Yeah, not the newspaper archive book, but just a photo album.
So
her own photo album, I guess.
I guess with that same picture, what's going on here?
She says they got the captions on two pictures. She says these two pictures. I don't know why the other picture would be in her photo album, but they got the captions on these two pictures mixed up. But it's not like a newspaper in her. It's just photos. Anyway, she's showing them, this is the picture of me at the police academy graduation with my boyfriend.
Oh.
So she was just attending a police academy graduation. That's why there's police officers flanking her all around.
And then Jennifer recognizes this person. She goes, is that Tim Dark? I used to date him. Uh-oh.
And then Marianne kind of sheepishly goes, oh, yeah, after you and Tim broke up, we went out for 2 years. I was afraid you might get mad, so I never showed you that picture. And then everybody starts to put it together, and Balky says, oh, Tim Dark. That's why you call them the dark years. He goes, I guess these are the Bartolomew's years. But first of all, how these two are like best friends from childhood, from kindergarten, and she went out with her ex for 2 years.
Isn't that breaking some girl code?
Yeah.
Like, you don't do that, right? Come on.
For 2 years, and you never told her about it.
And even now, and you stayed away and kept it a secret.
Although it wasn't that long ago, 84, 85 to 90.
I mean, it was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I figured that breaks some kind of female girlfriend code. Come on.
I mean, just any kind of friend code. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't do that. So presumably, she's showing them that photograph from.
So she's just showing him her copy of that photograph.
If she's saying the captions got swapped, then there would have been a news story with that photo.
Correct.
Like
with another
story
caption.
about the police academy graduation, I guess.
Probably on that
and why
same
does
page.
she have the photo of it? Because wouldn't a newspaper photographer have taken it? Why does she have a photo of it in her own photo album?
These are all good questions.
Yeah.
I don't know why she's looking at this. Why Larry didn't see, maybe there was another story on that same page.
Yeah.
With
Larry, who's like an investigative reporter.
Know the Chronicle is full of typos. They put Darla Wayne's name on the cover. They're mixing up
That's
captions.
why it's not around anymore.
What kind of a rinky-dink newspaper is this? Who's checking this stuff? Where's the editor?
Larry, couldn't do any more research.
He's not a very good investigative reporter.
I mean, he did enough research to know that she was acquitted because they never found the body.
He needed to do like one more step of research, and this would have all been cleared up. Wouldn't have had an episode. Anyways, this is great. Like Marianne and Balky are about to kiss when Larry just goes, well, I guess I owe everybody an apology. He goes, should I do them one at a time or all together?
We get a little kind of like implied background on what has gone on among this group of friends. Balky says, well, when he embarrasses us, it's usually a group apology, but when he lies, it's mostly individual.
And the others are like, true, that's true.
They're all like, nodding.
Yeah.
And then he goes, then there was a time we got those gift cards. That was nice.
That was nice.
He looks at Larry, says, I guess we're due for individual.
Individual, please.
And then he goes, individual, please. And Larry just looks at them and he's like, okay, Marianne, I'm sorry I thought you were a homicidal maniac who killed my fiance and was going to kill my best friend.
And this is the best response.
Marianne just goes, oh, that's okay, Larry.
It's the funniest response.
And there's like a beat before the audience laughs.
It's like a slow joke, but it's not funny. She's like, oh, that's okay, Larry.
Then she just like looks
like,
into,
What is she supposed to say?
That's okay. And then he says, Balky, I'm sorry I almost got you killed on the side of the mountain. And Balky says, oh, don't worry about it. I'm just sorry that forest ranger had to see you cry. And then he says, Jennifer, I'm sorry for making you feel like you're engaged to a crazy man. And Jennifer, again, so forgiving after all of his schemes and neuroses. She says, Larry, I'm flattered you were so concerned about me, but frightened by how quickly you lose touch with reality.
That's great.
Jennifer, run.
That's a great
Get
line.
out of this now.
It's Larry in a nutshell. He's just going to go off the deep end at a moment's notice.
And he promises her it won't happen again.
I doubt that.
And then he suggests that they all go out and have a nice, quiet dinner.
Oh, lovely.
And so they all agree and they get up and they all go out the front door. Larry holds the door open. Jennifer and Marianne exit first. And just as Marianne is exiting, she turns back and she looks at Larry and she says, this isn't over, Appleton. I'd sleep with one eye open if I were you. And then she leaves and the door closes and Larry's like, what?
He's like, did anybody hear that?
And then the door opens again. Marianne and Jennifer come back in.
And Balky leans in.
And Balky from the other side, they all lean in. They go, gotcha.
Oh, the old gotcha.
And Larry has like a womp womp look on his face.
Fantastic.
And roll credits. No lesson time.
Fantastic freeze frame of all the facial expressions at the end of this where Larry's just like, bleh.
Yeah.
Listener, before we get into our thoughts, get some Dance of Joy merch at our TeePublic shop, danceofjoypod.com/shop, and you can see lovely t-shirts and hoodies and tank tops and cell phone cases, tote bags,
totes,
laptop cases, lots of fun stuff, all with Dance of Joy logo on it. Check it out. So what do we learn this episode? Basically, Larry is a very bad investigative reporter.
Larry's a bad reporter.
To check other captions.
There's mountains somewhere in Chicago.
Mountain climbing. You can go to Starved Rock.
They either rappelled down or climbed up. We don't know. We didn't learn a lot. We had more questions than answers, actually.
What'd you think? All in all, a fairly silly filler.
Like, even for the silliness, I just feel like the story was so shallow and had so many questions that it like really didn't do much for me. It kind of killed the funness of it because I was like, none of this makes sense. Why is she dirty?
Why was she dirty?
Why was Marianne dirty?
She had some killer lines though. Marianne always delivers.
And then Balky's uneven step ups.
So there's some funny random things.
Good lines.
Yeah.
There were some good lines, but it was just okay.
The premise itself is entirely silly.
So flimsy. Yeah.
But what did our listeners think?
Yeah, the premise was almost upsetting because you're like, Larry's supposed to be a reporter.
Yeah. He hasn't learned anything. No wonder you're still in the basement, Appleton.
He didn't see the other photo and like understand that maybe the captions were flipped. I don't know. All right. What did our listeners think? First up, we have listener cousin Pam Hitchcock, who is quite critical. She writes, I'm just going to say, why does this episode exist? There's no sense or purpose to it. It's as if the writers had 23 minutes to fill and decided to recycle Larry's neuroses and totally forget he's an investigative reporter who deals in solid facts.
Yeah, is he?
Shrug emoji, shrug emoji, shrug emoji.
Yeah.
Then we have, I agree with all of that. Good. I think we're on the same page here, Pam Hitchcock. She also writes, side note, my Baba Stickies are in recovery from the 2-part episode. This is her rating system. Hopefully they'll return soon, but even better, I hope some Bibi Bobkas can join us.
Me too.
She's saying, hopefully we'll have like a good episode soon. We hope so too.
Yeah.
We have cousin listener Nicole Stoner, who writes, as we've progressed through the season, I think we're starting to notice why this season's tonal shift is so noticeable. These characters aren't acting quite the same and not in a well-developed way you would expect in a sitcom.
Yeah.
Yes. She says, I could excuse this for, say, a season 3 episode when we were still getting to know the characters and watching them grow and develop. But unfortunately, like how Balky's fresh off the boat, tramp steamer, one episode, and the next he's fully assimilated all these seasons later, Larry's neurosis hasn't really budged all these seasons later.
Jeez.
Yeah. Also, we're going to start to see that inconsistency in Balky's character more and more. I remember as I watched through these, I was like, season 6 is really a long way to carry that fresh off the boat immigrant, like cluelessness.
Yeah, you got to be done with that at some point.
They're so free. They go back and forth to serve their purposes. Some episodes he's like brand new in America after 5 years, 6 years. And other episodes he's like very, very American and like understands everything with nuance and irony and whatever. So it starts to get very noticeable and a little frustrating. All right. Nicole Stoner also writes, though I will say this episode and Marianne's final lines to Larry makes her remark that the Spencer family spent their summers in Beirut back in season 5 makes it funnier. Yes, agreed. We used to summer in Beirut.
The Spencer. That's our last name.
Listener cousin Whitney Smith found it cool that Mrs. Schlegelmilch is still alive and well.
Yay, Schlegelmilch.
And still a neighbor. And she reminds us that the last time we heard about Mrs. Schlegelmilch was when they were doing the grocery store shopping spree. He had all this stuff.
Oh, that's right.
Sausages and whatever.
For Schlegelmilch.
Yeah. And we have listener cousin John Adama, who writes, well, this episode certainly is an episode.
Yes, it's an episode, all right.
It's an episode. I think it suffers from being a life-threatening Hitchcockian story after 2 weeks of a life-threatening Hitchcockian story. Another episode that you could plug almost any sitcom characters into and only have to change the names. That's an interesting point. And he gives it a C. Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
Don't be ridiculous. Not said at all.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
Wait, I like this comment. Like, you could plug in any sitcom characters.
Right,
that means there wasn't anything unique to Balky and Larry's character growth or, like he freaks out, but a lot of people would freak out in this particular situation.
Yeah, right. There wasn't anything unique to the characters in there.
Yeah.
The stuff we love about them.
Yeah.
Could have been anybody. It's very generic filler. I mean, there's a lot of episodes.
I wonder
in
what
the
was
season.
going on behind the scenes or like in the
Either
writers' room.
Just somebody throw this together.
Yeah. Back in season 6.
We did get a great Dimitri of Harris, though. I'm sitting
We
right there
did. Dimitri was
on the
back.
coffee table, getting ready to get packed up with the television.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about Perfect Strangers today. PS Today, which is the segment of this podcast where we discuss, can we do this episode now?
Why would you want to do this episode?
Well-
I say, don't even, just let it, don't do it. Like, it's a silly, stupid premise.
And actually, you
Just
wouldn't be
don't
able,
do it
the
anymore.
premise doesn't hold up.
You couldn't
because
do it.
You would just be like, you would just Google, did Marianne Spencer, Mabel, whatever,
Yeah.
and like you would just do the research right away on at a computer and find out right away, like, oh, and if there was a mistake like that, they would correct it.
It would
and
be,
you'd
yeah, it
like-
would be corrected
You
and
wouldn't even
edited.
be doing. You wouldn't even find
A
a false
mismatched caption.
because it would be fixed online, and you don't even have those old archives anymore.
Unless somebody
So you'd have to
deepfaked
set
something.
it up like a whole different way.
See, I say,
whole
don't you
different
don't
reason
you don't,
why you think she's a murderer.
don't even worry about trying to do this again. Like, it's
Yeah.
just not necessary.
Like maybe he's listening to like a true crime podcast and it
Oh.
like describes someone
Okay.
like Marianne.
That's like a lot of things I've seen. Yeah, it's a true crime
but
podcast
the
where
premise of
Yeah.
this like swapped photographs, it wouldn't.
no, it would be a
wouldn't
true
hold up.
crime podcast where they don't reveal the name, but all the details
And he
just
listens
line
and
up.
listens
It's a
and he's like,
coincidence. And then you find out that like the podcast is fake and they're making the whole thing up or something. But he believes it's like only murders in the building.
kind of, yeah.
But really, just don't do this
It wouldn't,
anymore.
yeah.
Don't
Pretty,
do this
pretty
anymore.
low, pretty low.
Just kill this whole
PS
concept. It's fine.
And there's no mountains near Chicago.
I don't know what you could be climbing.
And how did he find them, even if there were mountains? He just
I don't know.
found
He
the
just found
exact
them. He knew
place
exactly
where they
where
are
they were. I
without
mean,
any GPS.
It looked like he
right?
was running around for a while, but it was the same day. It was still daylight, so
Oh
it didn't
my
seem like it took a
gosh.
lot of time.
None of this adds up.
No.
What did they think audiences were so stupid? Why did they write stuff
It's just like a
this?
silly like suspension of display. Like we have
They're
to have
like,
him
they'll
show
buy
up
it.
here.
They'll buy it.
We need a mountain set.
Why
You need
was
to
she
show up here.
dirty?
Yeah. Well, they explained that she was cleaning out her closet, a very dirty closet. Yeah,
Dirt from the
she
closet.
must be a hoarder or something. I don't know.
Maybe. All right. I really hope next week's episode makes a little more
I
sense.
feel like we had a great one last week, right? And then
two-parter? No.
No, the ring. That
The
was
Ring, the
that
Ring,
was a
the
really
Ring.
fun episode.
Oh, yes.
So
the
there's
ring.
ups and downs here, you know. It gives and it takes. Let's find out. Next week, Larry meets an old high school bully.
Uh-oh. Dun, dun, dun.
An old high school bully. Something good should happen. In the meantime, listener, you can support this show by buying us a virtual coffee. Yes, visit our website, danceofjoypod.com. There's a little buy us a coffee button there. Helps keeps the show going and paying for server, hosting the files and stuff, and we appreciate any and all support.
You can also show your support by coming to visit us on our website at danceofjoypod.com. There you can press a lot of buttons to go to different places to listen to this podcast and like this podcast and rate and review this podcast. You can also press a button to leave us a voice message right from the website. Say hi. Tell us what you thought about this frustrating episode with many questions. Did you think that Marianne Spencer was a serial killer?
Spencer.
And tell us why you think Marianne was dirty. What did she have in her closet? You can also send us an email at danceofjoypod@gmail.com or hit us up on any of our social media accounts. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at danceofjoypod. But Imran, what is the most important thing our listeners should do?
If you're going to go mountain climbing, always have the correct gear. It's very important. Just don't go up there in your jeans and long sleeve shirt.
Eye contact.
Eye contact. Also, check the captions or other stories when you're doing research.
Also, be a good reporter.
Also, learn how to be a good investigative reporter is the most important thing. Don't just look at one caption and go crazy. Otherwise, the show would be no fun if you didn't do that. Let's be
But
honest.
more important than all that is to share this show
Yes.
with a friend
With your rock climbing instructor.
in Chicago.
Yes, with the person who gives you the reference material at the library.
Yes, share this show. Talk about Perfect Strangers. Talk about the Dance of Joy pod. We will love you forever for it. Thank you so much. That's our show for this week. Now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy. Hey, 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 hey!